Hey, everybody. Can everybody hear me or turn this on? Oh, there we are. Good evening, everybody. This is the October 16th, 2023 Public Safety Commission meeting for the city of Redondo Beach. And let me see if I can find my list of things here. Let's call the meeting to order. May I have a roll call, please?
You may.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gittens is absent right now. Commissioner Gupta,
Here.
Chair Gall,
Here.
Commissioner Kleinbaum,
Here.
correct me if I say this incorrectly, Commissioner Escontrias,
Escontrias. Present.
and Commissioner Skiba.
Here.
Very good. Roll call is complete.
Great. Let's salute the flag with a moment of silence for our fallen officer in Manhattan Beach, as well as just other matters. Thank you. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. May I get approval for the order of agenda?
Is there a motion to approve?
I approve.
We hear a second?
A second.
Okay.
Was that you, Nancy?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So for routine items, the voting can be, I'd like to put on the record that Commissioner Gittens has arrived and is present. For routine items, a vote can be conducted in a manner of, by the chair, all in favor.
Okay.
Any opposed? Anything more serious, more substantial, like when we do our officer elections, would be
Yeah.
roll call vote, or anything that we deem may be more relevant.
We can save
So
a few minutes of time. Yeah.
For this motion, you can solicit all those in favor and then ask for any opposed.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. All right.
So approved.
Yeah, great. So let's go to the blue folder items, if any, and Officer Lostrom, I would suspect there's none.
No blue folder items.
Great. So let's go to the consent calendar. And let's see if there's anything that we need to discuss here, but business items except those formally noticed for public hearing or discussion are assigned to the consent calendar. The commission members may request that the consent calendar items be removed, discussed, or acted upon separately. Items removed from the consent calendar will be taken up under the excluded consent calendar section below. Those items remaining on the consent calendar will be approved in one motion following oral communications. So, in other words, does anybody want to move anything around? And all those in favor of the current calendar? Or any?
And the affidavit of posting will require approval.
Okay. Do I hear approval for the affidavit of posting?
So moved.
Aye.
Any objection? Okay, great. We have the affidavit of posting. How about the excluded consent calendar items, sensing that there are none?
None.
Great. So we have no one in public, but I can read the boilerplate and say, this section is intended to provide members of the public with the opportunity to comment on any subject that does not appear on this agenda for action. This section is limited to 30 minutes. Each speaker will be afforded 3 minutes to address the commission. Each speaker will be permitted to speak only once. Written requests, if any, will be considered first under this section. And Officer Lostrom, do we have any written comments or anything?
No emails, no e-comments, and 0 Zoom attendees.
Great, thank you. So we can go to, well, that's H and H1. And so I is items continued from previous agendas. I don't think there are any items being continued.
No items.
Thank you. So now we go to J, items for discussion prior to action. So J1 is election of officers.
So we'll, with the new commissioners present, there'll be a nomination and a vote for a chair and vice chair.
Great.
So do we hear any nominations for a new chair or an incumbent chair? We do need a chair.
Do you want to do it again?
Sure.
Okay, no.
I like the chair. It's really an honor to be here. I would be delighted to have a vice chair, or to be honest.
Is there Commissioner Gupta, is that a nomination
Yes.
for
Thank you.
Jeff Goff for chair?
Yes.
And is there a second?
I second.
Second by Commissioner Gittens. And we'll do a roll call vote for this. Commissioner Gittens,
Aye.
Commissioner Gupta,
Aye.
Chair Gall, incumbent
Abstain.
chair. Abstain. Commissioner Kleinbaum,
Aye.
Escontrius.
Aye.
Did I say it right? No, to say it again.
That's fine, that's Contreras.
Escontrius.
Contreras. The accent on the three.
And Commissioner Skiba.
Aye.
So approved. Any nominations for a vice chair? That would fulfill your duties if you're absent.
What does like a vice chair do?
Would act as the chair in his absence.
Designated hitter.
And the chair just runs the meeting much like he does for the last several meetings,
I think I could do it.
under my guidance.
Move. Okay. So move for
Nomination is
nomination is for Commissioner Gupta.
Gupta. Do I hear any other nominations?
Is there a second for Commissioner Gupta?
I second it.
Commissioner Kleinbaum seconds.
How about Commissioner Kleinbaum?
Any other?
Anybody second?
Second.
Great, makes it more stressful. It's gonna be a tough
If he
vote.
wants to do it, he could do it. That's fine. I could recant.
Any other nominations? Okay, let's see.
Roll call vote for Commissioner Gupta as vice chair. Commissioner Gittens.
Aye. Aye.
Commissioner Gupta.
I'll abstain.
Chair Gall.
No.
Commissioner Skiba.
Aye.
Commissioner Kleinbaum.
I abstain.
And Commissioner Escontrias. There we go.
Oh, no.
That's 2 for and 2 against.
That'd be fun.
Roll call vote for vice chair for Commissioner Kleinbaum. Commissioner Gittens.
No.
Commissioner Gupta.
It's just gonna be 2-2, isn't it? It's okay. You could have it. I'll say aye.
And Chair Gall.
Yes.
Commissioner Skiba.
No.
Commissioner Kleinbaum.
I abstain.
And Escontrias.
Yes.
Escontrias.
Yes.
It's going to take me a long time.
That's okay.
Yes. Okay. So approved. 3 votes to 2. Commissioner Kleinbaum as vice chair.
Can you accept the nomination?
Sure.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. You can proceed, Chair.
Thanks. Let's talk about J2. Let's go to RBPD, quality of life, noise enforcement.
So some unforeseen circumstances happened with Quality of Life's officer, John Bannock. There was an emergency. Everyone is okay, but he did have to tend to the emergency. So we will have to postpone that
Oh, okay.
until next month.
Okay.
And then as far as the agenda goes, you can proceed to the next item.
Is there any general updates about quality of life or services offered that you can just render briefly for those listening in the meeting at a later time, et cetera?
Well, I can tell you that next month, what he'll go into detail about
Yeah.
is probably the administrative citations that we've developed, the noise enforcement decibel machine that we've purchased and will put into action for those purposes. And probably he'll cover the differences between noise issues as it pertains to vehicles, like loud exhaust vehicles on the road, and what's written in the vehicle code, and as compared to like city municipal codes in more domestic issues.
Thank you, Officer Losser.
But he's going to give you the good deets next month.
Yes.
Can I ask, is it going to be, are the sensors going to be like all over the city? Are there multiple sensors?
No, it's
or-
one device. It's one,
Okay.
Oh, it's a mobile type of thing.
yes.
Not
And
like
it would
an
be
Irish
complaint.
setup.
I believe it would be complaint based.
So there'd be
to my
specific
knowledge.
locations would be-
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's like a specific calibrated device that is meant to be that way so that when it goes to court, it can be held up as a calibrated machine. A lot of people use the cell phone devices,
Yeah.
but it's not necessarily legitimate in court because it's just your cell phone and who knows what could have happened to your cell phone.
Oh,
It's like
unfiltered,
if you're taking
calibrated.
somebody's speed on the road, you have to bring that device and show that it's calibrated in court.
Oh,
Same idea.
gotcha. When you say decibel meter, that isn't the speed meter. It's a different machine measuring sound.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's also in the same system? That's
It's
calibrated?
not the same system, it's just the standard in court is similar.
I see.
So in court, if you write somebody a speeding ticket using your LiDAR gun, you have to prove in court that that LiDAR gun is calibrated and accurate, and it would be the same for this machine.
Sorry to put everybody to sleep on this, but how often do you calibrate those?
I have no
How long do
idea.
they take to calibrate?
I do not know.
Yeah.
I do not know. The traffic guys know all the
Yeah.
good deets on that.
We'd love to have them next month. I know tensile testing for wire. I mean, I don't even want to be the person calibrating. It's like, that's a different world. But great. This is a good agenda item. We thank the police department for bringing it up. And also the service from Lila and also the prosecutor's office at QOL handling all the little complaints and, just getting people to the right place and keeping people out of trouble. Thank you very much. Let's see.
You could proceed to J3.
All right. And nothing to add, Joy, on J2? Okay. J3, Chief Yang. Oh, I didn't even know that happened. That's cool.
Thing, right? Commissioners, how are you? Welcome. My name is Isaac Yang, Division Chief, Redondo Beach Fire Department. As of today, prior to coming to this meeting, we were at 6,585 emergency responses for the year. Puts us trending towards about 8,300 for the year come the end of the year, which again is a increase in our annual call volume. Just to follow up from some of the items that were asked by the commission for me, just as updates as far as domoic acid poisoning for sea mammals, as well as some of the structure fires we had last quarter relative to the size of those incidents, and then specifically what do we do on the fire service to protect firefighters in their first response
Yeah.
in those particular spaces. So with the domoic acid update, so in July, early July, there was a large algae bloom widespread throughout the ocean. Does not harm humans, but is a toxin to sea mammals, sea lions, seals specifically. And what happens is it creates neurological issues with those types of animals, seizures, erratic behavior, aggressiveness. So there was an uptick in those types of experiences with people that were going to the beach and the harbor areas and the marinas. Since that time, that algae bloom has come and gone, and that aggressive sea mammal time period has passed us. But that is what was happening in that period of time with the aggressive sea mammals. As far as the structure fire responses, we did have 3 significant structure fire responses in pretty rapid succession. We had North Alberta down the street around the corner. We had Pacific Coast Highway, and we had up in Kingsdale, so both sides of the city, both north and south. Over there in the Alberta area, there was a subterranean garage of a small multi-unit townhouse complex. It was actually a vehicle fire midday that occurred in that space. So thankfully, there was no extension into the living space. It was an underground parking structure, so it was concrete-laden area, which ultimately protected any upward extension. The strip mall dry cleaner fire on Pacific Coast Highway was a very large fire, consumed that entire occupancy. It did breach the attic into the roof, and so with that, it allows for fire products of combustion, fire, smoke, heat to escape up as opposed to cross laterally. So fire crews did execute an aggressive fire attack. They did topside ventilation to further allow products of combustion to escape upward and outward. So the damage was pretty much contained to the unit of origin with a little bit of damage creep to the lateral, but was pretty well contained in rapid succession by crews responding. And the last fire up on the Kingsdale side of the city by the Galleria Mall was a fully involved detached garage. The size of that fire was significant enough to cause exposure potential to adjacent buildings. So that was responded to, lines are deployed. It was interesting in terms of a identification piece and being able to identify what exactly was burning, the best access, and then also protecting the exposed structures around that fire that would be ultimately victimized by thermal insults. So damage was limited. The garage in question was extinguished. There were no injuries. All 3 of the incidents, there were no injuries to civilians and or responders. So in those 3 spaces, even though there were structure fires, they were in very unique occupancy types, right? You had single family dwelling, exterior garage, strip mall, place of business on the weekend during the middle of the day. So the things that we employ for responder safety, first is the equipment. From the vehicles we respond on, premium fire apparatus, we run 3 Pierce fire engines. We run a Pierce aerial ladder that runs a 107-foot aerial ladder, just exceptional equipment. So the city has been very, very supportive in giving us the ability to purchase custom designed, custom spec'd equipment for this community. But really what we wear on our person, our personal protective equipment, our helmets, our turnouts, the coats, the pants, the boots, everything all put together. Statistically, turnouts off the shelf can reduce a firefighter's dexterity by about 30%, which also adds to fatigue, also adds to physical coordination pieces. And then when you add those 2 together, there's also the risk of physical injury and just the more aggressive movements with heavy equipment. So we're able to purchase custom measured PPE. Each member gets measured like a suit. And so with those measurements, we're able to provide each firefighter 2 sets of turnouts. We work a 48-96 work schedule, meaning we're on for 2 days, and we are able to recover for 96 4 days. In the time that we're on duty, because they're consecutive days, if we have a structure fire on the first day, we have a clean set of gear to be able to transition into. We're also able to care for that equipment with an extractor, which is a special stainless steel washing machine that does not absorb contaminants and carcinogens. And we also have a special dryer. It's a hanger dryer, so we don't damage the gear as we kind of restore it back to operational use. So between the equipment and the actual like gear that we wear, those are the external elements. We train with great frequency. So on the fire ground, there's really 3 areas that we operate in. On the actual fire ground are the task level skills, pulling the hose, squirting the water, raising the ladders, climbing the ladders, forcing the doors. Sorry.
Okay.
And then so as the firefighters improve their proficiency in those task level executions, we're able to give assignments from the chiefs in the command post in the strategic space. We come up with a plan, we come up with clarity in that plan, how to execute. That's one level of overhead. The captains operate in a tactical space where they give those assignments to execute our strategic goals. And then ultimately the firefighters are the boots on the ground to execute the task. So between the equipment, the training, the process procedures, the protocols that we have in place that we train in on, it allows for greater ability to make assignments that will lead to predictable outcomes in a predictable time frame. We also have firefighter Mayday protocols. So we have every firefighter has a radio, every firefighter has a full self-contained breathing apparatus, and they're supervised by on-scene captains that ensure firefighter safety, task execution, and mitigation of the emergency. So those are all different facets of what we build into every response, whether it's the structure fire, medical aid, or traffic collision, things of that nature in the field. So if there's any other questions that you may have of me as far as like firefighter safety on the emergency ground, I'm happy to answer them. If not, I can move on to maybe some of the things we're working on moving forward.
Any questions, commissioners?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Of the 6,500 responses, how many were fire-related and how many were medical-related?
We're run probably about 85% of our call volume is medical in nature. And then the 15% balance would have a fire nexus or hazardous environment nexus. So that could be a traffic collision, that could be a hazardous material spill, that could be a water main break or a structure. I'm happy to get hard statistics, like how many fires. Absolutely, we'll be able to provide that for you next meeting.
Again, my concern is the fact of I believe there's some changes in the protocols concerning the dispatch of a rig along with a paramedic unit and how that is supposedly supposed to change.
Sure. So in terms of like tiered dispatching, as opposed to sending every unit to every response, we are working with dispatch, also within the organization to come up with, as opposed to say the most robust dispatch in terms of number of resources, we're moving into like a risk-based dispatch where it's the most appropriate resource for that call type.
But excuse me, sir, but it was my understanding that approximately a year ago, that recommendation was already made in order to differentiate between a full turnout with the rig and everything else to a paramedic call.
Right.
Has that been implemented yet?
Yeah, so we have what's called ALS and BLS responses.
Right.
So like on a BLS response, engine only. And then as far as ALS response, it'll be a fire unit, engine or truck with the paramedic.
When you say engine, is that the paramedic rig or is that the fire rig?
So the paramedic unit I'm referring to as like the paramedic squad, 2 people in a truck.
Right. So they only go for that. That is currently implemented now.
No, ALS response is the paramedic unit
Right.
plus an engine or a truck for
So-
personnel.
So you have not bifurcated the idea of that only a medical response request only. Okay, you still dispatch a fire rig with firefighters on that at the same time.
Yes, we still do a fire unit on a BLS response for personnel. In case we have to like pick someone up, we need personnel to do that. But we also have right now a rescue and a engine response for a paramedic response.
Because my understanding is that the recommendation from Chief Kaufman was that we deviate from that, and I believe most other agencies have also deviated from that, so it does not tie up firefighters for that. I'm just kind of curious, is there a timeline of some sort in order to implement that program?
Sure. So we are working with dispatch and a tier dispatch company called PowerPhone to implement those. But as you know, those are regulated. So we are working towards that. As far as like the hard timeline, I don't have an exact date, but rest assured we are working towards that because prior to what I just described, we'd set an engine and a rescue on everything.
Right.
So we are working in the direction of bifurcating the appropriate response based on our ability to tier it at the dispatch center.
Okay. I have a few more questions.
Yeah.
Of the 3 responses to the fire, how many were mutual aid?
Everything in our city is in town. We receive mutual aid. but
That's right. I'm saying, how many of
give it.
those from an outside agency came in to had to assist you?
All of them.
All 3 of them?
Yes, sir.
Do you know which agencies had to assist?
We will receive El Segundo, Manhattan Beach, Torrance, and LA County.
All 4 of them showed up to all 3 of these?
I was at Alberta, yes.
Okay.
I was not at the PCH fire, but based on the size of it, it's reasonable presumptive.
Okay.
And then I was at Kingsdale, and yes.
Okay. My question would then be, the mutual aid concern is based on the fact of the need for either one, you were lacking in certain equipment, and therefore you would have to require them, or the number of people that's on duty.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm kind of concerned at seeing those numbers because as we want to be able to give you enough, or actually let the council be aware, is that if we are concentrating on mutual aid coming in all the time, then obviously we have a serious lack of personnel.
Okay.
Okay. Along the same lines, how many responses of the 6,500 did you mutual aid to other agencies?
I
How
would
much time
have
are you
to-
spending outside the city?
I would have to look that up. So in the beach cities, on every fire response we receive, and in those cities, on their fire response, we give. But that being said, also, Chief Butler is moving into a structure fire first alarm model that is going to be Redondo only.
Right. My concern would be how much time we're spending outside the city, and as opposed, is there a balance between what is coming into the city? Okay. You indicated that the equipment, that we rigorous on that, but my understanding is that Redondo had to borrow Manhattan Beach's rig for a while. Which basically means we don't have that particular equipment because our equipment is either outdated, I believe 25 years old.
That's actually not accurate. When rigs are going into normal service,
Right.
or need a more major service, then obviously they're going to be out of our ability to operate. So that being said, we had reserve units that were being serviced as well as frontline. Therefore, we initiated the apparatus share program that is in place between the beach cities.
So you borrowed Manhattan Beaches only because of the fact that you're down for maintenance and not the fact that possibility that you need a new rig, but you don't have one? And actually, they have not budgeted for it?
Our rigs are, I think the oldest Pierce rig, I think is going on like 8 or 9 years. So, yeah, so the rigs are solid.
And I must have been misinformed because my understanding is that you're down a rig and that ideally we should be purchasing a new one.
We're actually on the way to receiving 2 brand-new Seagrave engines as we speak.
Okay.
Could I ask one question? What regulations are you looking at and who approves those regulatory matters to get those bifurcations for the different service units? Is that city council or does that have to go to like the state legislature or does it go through like a state governing regulatory
It is
body?
my understanding that DOT manages how that works. But we also work with LA County DHS. We also work with our medical director.
And how long do those approvals from DOT take? Probably a year?
No, I think more so it's that there's a framework. It's not necessarily it goes to them for approval.
Okay,
There's frameworks that we
Yeah.
function under.
got it. Please continue if you have
One
any
more
other
question.
questions. Yes.
On the 3 incidents with response to fire, was an after-action report filed or generally, at what level of response did you generally do an after-action report and a debrief?
All three of those incidents were debriefed internally with the crews that responded.
Okay, but there's no after-action report?
As far as like a written white paper?
Yes.
No, sir.
Was there anything the business community could have been informed to keep the root cause, such as the fire with the dry cleaner, to better maintain their equipment to prevent such incidents, and that could be better publicized by the city to the business community?
That is still under investigation, if I'm not mistaken, yeah.
No arson in any of those 3 fires.
Not that I'm currently aware of, no.
Are there any other questions by the commissioners?
Just curious, out of curiosity, of the cost of those individual PPE.
Wow, yeah.
About $2,500 a set.
Got it.
What is it off the shelf?
Oh, I don't know what the off the shelf is. That is a Redondo spec that we've kind of put together.
There was an Undercover Boss episode in Shreveport where the gentleman had to reuse his uniform over and over again after each emergency. So your presentation here is well regarded. And are there any
thank
other
you.
questions?
I have questions.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you, at the beginning of your presentation, you talked about the number of calls this year and then on track. And then you gave a percent that 85% of the calls were for medical and 15% were for the rest. So what percent are actual fires or calls for an alleged fire?
Yeah, I've looked that up, just so for Commissioner Escontrias, we're going to look that up.
Oh, okay, all right. And then over time, I'd be very curious, like, it can change. So a certain percentage of the calls are for
Sure.
one type of service
Yeah.
versus a different type of service. How has it changed,
We'll
if
do a
at all,
5-year
over
look
the,
back.
over the years? What are the trends?
Yeah, we'll do a 5-year look back for you.
I would love to see
Thank
that.
you.
And if, on that as well, just, and again, is to determine of the responses, say on the medical side,
Sure.
how many of them would be for those that are homeless?
Oh, good question.
That is a new tracking criteria, but I'm happy to give that to you.
How is, you can't go off the run sheets?
Well, I mean, just because someone, like if it's at the beach, it could just be someone who had gone to the beach from out of town. So that would happen.
Right, but the run sheet would generally, when you take the information down in order, especially on transportation, there's information that you gather.
Right. So what I'm saying is it's a new data criteria that's initiated by the county. And I'm happy to provide that
By
information.
the, you say by the county, I'm saying what about the city?
What I'm saying is the county drives the data that we capture on our electronic patient care report. So we're in compliance with the county, that is the Department of Health Services.
Right.
They drive that. So when that new data point comes in, on the fire side, that's where we initiate the trigger for those markers on the data gathered portion.
Okay, and under address, do you put transient or do you put, what designation would you put in there as opposed
As far
to?
as what now?
Say for example, you have the person's name usually, and then you would have an address. Now, if they're from out of the city, obviously it would be out of the city. But if they're a person where you ask somebody, hey, what's your address? It just, you happen to, and then.
Yeah, we don't do that. So when we get the call information, if it's to an address, we'll go. But we don't necessarily fill in like driver's license information. Does that make, we don't capture, like when we get on scene, I don't say, Mr. Escontrias, where do you live?
Right.
We'd run that call based on the report of the location of where the call is occurring.
Okay. What information do you capture?
I'm sorry?
What information do you capture?
Patient assessment information, HIPAA information.
Well, I understand about HIPAA.
Right.
Okay, but HIPAA information is only how insurance is paid. It's not necessarily what information you get.
Right.
Okay, so if you ask the person their name, obviously you would ask their name, right?
Name,
Name,
age,
weight,
chief complaint.
complaint,
And we catch vital signs and we catch.
vital signs and things like that. Okay, but as far as for billing or anything else like that, or for anything else, does it capture that data at all?
Yeah, up until this point, the Redondo Beach Fire Department does not bill for services.
But you still do have the information within your database to determine how many are transient and how many are not.
Once, yes, because that data point is now collected, I can provide that information based on when we started collecting the data.
Thank you.
But I can't do like a 10-year look back.
That's fine. Thank you.
I have one question that's very important to me. How many, because of your ability to train and plan for safety and effective firefighting, how many casualties and deaths have we had in the Redondo Beach Fire Department in the last 20 years?
Anecdotally, I can say that I've been to 2 structure fires in my career where there was a fire-based fatality and then there was a fatality at the scene, but that is not necessarily because of thermal insult from the fire.
So Redondo Beach employees, maybe one or none.
Oh, you're talking about the people, oh.
Work for RBFD.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
No problem at all.
Yeah, I've not known of any firefighters that have lost their lives here at a structure fire.
That's really good to know. Thank you very much, Chief.
Sir?
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Okay. At a recent council meeting, there was discussion about a $200 fee that may be imposed in the future for paramedic services. And do you know when that might take place? And would it be applied to folks who are transported or those who are not transported?
So it's a $313 fee, and it is in process in how that will be applied. So it's not in service yet, and there is no implementation, a hard implementation date, but we are working with a billing vendor to see what that looks like procedurally. But that is not in service now.
Okay. And would that be applied to insurance?
That is the plan.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Ultimately, it's the user, right?
I just wanted some clarification. So if there's an emergency and I call 911, they send me a bill?
If it were, the proposal is a recovery fee for medical services rendered in that instance.
I don't know what I pay taxes for then.
That is, again, part of the discussion and the implementation, how this process would work.
Yeah, understood.
I mean, if you call an ambulance, like if it's not the fire department, they will send you, they'll send you a bill right now.
Oh, I know.
So if it happens not to be the fire department, right?
Right.
But the issue comes up
Yeah.
in one, several factors. One, if I don't call, but you call, why am I obligated to have to pay for it? For one.
Yeah.
Two, for example, El Segundo has a very similar program, but it costs $80 per resident for that fee. Beverly Hills has the same thing as such, and it basically defers the cost of that. If you show up to my house and you ask me my name, generally I will tell everybody in my house, refuse. I'm not telling you who I am. I'm not obligated to tell you who I am.
Okay.
And therefore you can't send the bill to me. They're asking, looking along the same lines of that, is that insurance would pay for it. Now, theoretically, people who have insurance would have to pay for it. If you don't have insurance, then you're stuck. Or if you're homeless, generally Medi-Cal or Medicare generally will pay for that. And that's what they're trying to imply, how we're going to recoup all the money that, for example, that the unhoused people are taking, because that's why the percentage should be how many of the unhoused, which I believe quite a bit, if you're saying that almost, my understanding is probably a good portion of the responses on the runs are from the unhoused. I wrong?
85%?
Sorry?
I mean, I work in the hospital.
Right.
Everyone comes to the hospital through either the fire department or paramedics.
Right.
There's people come, it's not just the unhoused
No,
population.
I
that's
get
come to the
that,
hospital.
but I'm talking about the,
You said 85% of all calls. 85% is like the population of Redondo that's sick and going
so
to
I'm
the
saying,
hospital.
you're saying 85% of the responses for healthcare are the unhoused?
No, I said 85% of the call volume would go
Oh, call
on.
volume, okay.
medical
Everyone who calls
and
That's what I'm saying,
911.
is if we get the number as to how many are unhoused or how many are residents or who can pay, because that's unfortunately what's going on, is the responses that you're going to are the ones who
So
probably.
I worked in the county hospital at Harbor. That was probably a much higher percentage. I work at Torrance Memorial, Little Company of Mary. The majority are not unhoused population. And I would suspect when he gets the data, that's not going to be the case.
That's why I want to see
We
data
have
as
an
opposed
elder
to.
like population, I mean, it just logically makes sense that people go to the hospital. There's a lot
Well,
of
a lot of
reasons for
people are
that.
going to utilizing the ER as
Just
urgent care.
basically what you're saying is El Segundo is, yeah, that's like a whole healthcare problem. Yes, I mean, that's like a lot of issues within
Well,
healthcare
yeah,
in general.
I've been to Harbor, I've been to County USC, I've seen some of that. I'm just curious about that, that's all.
So to your point, like two calls went out on this radio during my time at this podium.
Right,
One was an ALS response, one was a BLS response.
right.
So we are working purposefully and with mission to, how do I say, refine our response system. But as we all know, like that's always a work in progress. Like you never really
Yes.
arrive. You're always working towards streamlining the operation. So, I mean, I understand what your question is as far as like, when do we arrive? I think if have that mindset, like, because we're always working, like we're moving from engine rescue on every run. Now we're engine rescue or engine on, depending on the run. And so there is a partnership in the city. There is clear intent on the fire department with cooperation with PD because they run dispatch and the dispatch group. So there is absolute will to move towards a refinement. So to your point, as far as these studies that we've kind of conducted within a fire department, we're absolutely moving in those directions. So you can rest assured that those efforts are being applied to meet the expectations of the community for the best practice.
Thank you.
Maybe a wrap-up question, if anybody has any other questions, feel free, but would you say that in the last few years that the Redondo Beach Fire Department has had a bit of a financial lag because of the increased calls and is in this efficiency improvements that we're applying for that our other commissioners are asking about would be helpful to balance out the finances of kind of the spend on responding to all these calls and maybe working with folks that may not be as insured as others?
If I understand the question correctly, you're asking, is it a financial?
Yes.
Our finance is holding back progress.
Are the increased number of calls costing us more money as a city to respond to all the calls because we're inefficient? And that's probably a whole separate meeting. But
Sure.
yeah.
Well, as far as organizational efficiencies, I think one of the things that are in our benefit is the actual square mileage of our city.
Yeah.
I think to your point, Commissioner Escontriz, there is the usage of auto aid, mutual aid. So those
Yeah.
agreements are in place. Those are heritage agreements, though, that have been perpetual throughout the course of my career.
Yeah.
And certainly beyond and probably after. So
Yes.
in the spirit of partnership and kind of the community safety piece of the area at large, we do work together. Now, I will also say that the city has been very supportive in the things that we're working towards for efficiencies. I think the fact that they just spent $2 million on 2 fire engines for the
that's
sake
great.
of replenishing our fleet and being able to keep us ahead.
Yeah.
So to your point, we did have older reserve units, but our frontline units are premium stock.
Wow.
That being said, with this $2 million investment in the fleet, that we're moving 8-year-old apparatus as reserves as opposed to older 25-year-olds. So to that point, I think that the city has been very generous in meeting the needs that we've communicated as far as not only efficiencies, but operational capacity to go above and beyond to maintain a level of service that is perpetual and ongoing.
Well, my understanding is that 2 of your facilities are, I believe, a minimum of $100,000 repairs to bring them at least to sufficiently,
Sure.
at least. Again, this is based on the study that was done for a possible transition to the county, and the county had found that at least, I believe, 2 or 3 of your facilities were seriously lacking in maintenance. And therefore would require anywhere from one, and I believe one was $600,000 to bring it up to sufficiently to code. Not necessarily to code, but to standards.
Okay, I mean, I've lived in those stations for 2 decades. I mean, here I am. I mean, what I love, a $15 million complex, sure, but I mean, I've worked in older stations, I've worked in newer stations. I think I'm grateful for the space we have, and I think the city works very hard.
Yeah.
Public Works is always working on the stations. We're in the process of servicing our generator at Station 1. That is quite an event. I mean, they're talking about enhancing some of the structural elements, windows, roofs, ceilings, generators, bay doors. Those are all things that we're grateful for investments from the city as well as our partners at Public Works. So, yeah, I mean, would we love, like they're building a new fire station too in Manhattan. That's awesome. Like I would love that. But I'm also happy with the fact that we have facilities that provide a shelter. We just were able to provide a station alerting upgrade that is contemporary. It is adjustable. Every member can manage the brightness of the lights, the volume of the tones. Those are all enhancements that, I mean, I get it's not a brand new multi-million fire station, but that is an enhancement. And we are thankful for those investments that the city has made in our facilities. So, yes, ma'am.
Also, have we gotten some new type of a resuscitation device?
We have an auto pulse mechanical compression device. Yes, ma'am. We have that on every unit in the city. And so again, like as far as the city's investment in public safety and our ability to provide cutting edge technology for survivability in the field, I think those investments are undeniable.
Great. Any other questions, commissioners? Go ahead.
Just have a comment. I just wanted to make sure I understand it because maybe I misheard it. I misunderstand the problem. The Redondo Beach Police Department does not have sufficient funding from the city government or wherever you get your funding to support the community, and they're looking for funding from the public, additional funding?
One more time, Commissioner. I didn't pick up on.
So what I heard is that there's an investigation going on to see if they're going to charge the public. If I call 911 and they come out, then they send me a bill for $300. So that means that you don't have sufficient funding from the government to do your job. So now you're looking for the public to make up the difference. Am I understanding that correctly?
That service recovery fee is a service recovery fee for obviously items used on that call. It's for recovery of like maintaining apparatus. There's all kinds of elements that we're rolling that money back into that is in progress of being developed and deployed, but it's in the process of development. So that there is more to come with that, and there's been a lot of conversation about that service fee recovery at the council level. So that is not something that is in service now.
I understand.
Last one for me. Just wanted to ask, just
Yes,
on
sir.
average, how often are you able to replace PPE and safety wear for your?
It's a 10-year window per National Fire Protection Association standard.
Got it.
So we rotate.
Okay.
Mhm. So like in a career, 30-year career, I'd have 6 sets. So, and we wear those not just for structure fires, but like traffic collisions, visibility, cut, tear, puncture, laceration hazards. Those are protective and hazardous materials events, certainly bloodborne events and stuff like that.
And do you find yourself having to repair more often than replace certain outfits or uniforms for your department?
Sure, the repairs are nowhere close to $2,500 for a new set. And like we do our own laundering, that is probably the most significant piece. Because in addition to like the exterior debris, when you sweat in the gear, your salt impregnates in the liner, which is disruptive to heat transfer. So we're always like laundering, washing, and making sure that it's premium for response.
And last one, just ideally, how often, or if you could, in ideal scenarios that we don't always have, how often would you like to have your officers' uniforms repaired or replaced when you find it necessary?
Oh, they're immediately done. There's no hesitation. PPE and safety is not up for question.
Add why that was necessary. Could you add why that would be necessary, just for everyone to understand why immediately?
Oh, sure. So like the encapsulation piece is critical, right? So when there's 3 layers to a firefighter's turnout gear, outer shell, inner shell, and a moisture barrier.
Wow.
And so that's why they're so kind of bulky and big. But there's multiple layers to that. So when you compromise, like say the exterior shell, then you're creating an access point for heat. You're creating an access point for liquid contaminants, carcinogens. There's absorption pieces if you compromise the moisture barrier. The inner liner, like I said, if it's impregnated with salt from sweat and not well maintained or torn or otherwise, then it allows the exterior elements to contact your physical skin and musculature. So in those pieces, that's like with Dr. Gupta, you can kind of get with this example. I'm not going to use latex gloves with a tear in them. That's just not going to happen. So what do? You get a new pair of latex gloves. Then just, right, there shouldn't be a debate of like the PPE, the personal protective elements that are in place when we do our jobs.
Quick to
We
repair
had to do
those?
that during COVID.
Quick to repair, is there a capacity to quickly repair those and get those out like the next couple days?
Absolutely. So we'll take it out to a vendor in Orange County.
Okay.
They come and pick up as needed. We can launder internal at Station 2. But if there's like a physical fix that has to happen, it gets bagged. We call the repair, they come pick up, they'll launder, they'll repair, boom, it's back in the 4 days. That's why I have 2 sets also.
Thank you, Commissioner Gupta, then Commissioner Escontrias.
Okay?
Go ahead, Commissioner Gupta.
Oh, no, I was just commenting, like
Good.
during,
Yes, sir.
I'm good,
You're
thank
good?
you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Well, that's the most intense discussion in the last few years. Thank you, Chief Yang. Well, that's
yeah,
it.
thank you, Chief
Okay.
Yang.
Send off for you.
Another thing we're kind of
Yeah.
working towards is working with different elements in the city attorney's office, police department, in terms of like the newer elements of like our responses that we're seeing and trending as far as the community need. There's like the mental health piece. So obviously there's a transient unhoused population of which PD and the Department of Mental Health have done a great job accessing and providing care to. But on the fire side, while since fall of 2020, there's been a concerted effort to address needs for that unhoused population, fire departments have been going to closed doors. We've been going to residential spaces. We've been going to private parties, the residents, and we've seen kind of like a parallel increase in mental health in terms of anxiety, depression, isolation, elements of that nature. So moving to kind of run a service that is similar to the PD unhoused piece, we're looking into the possibility of working in programs like West Hollywood's put in place. I know Los Angeles City has something to the effect. Culver City is moving into this direction where we're looking into the possibility of expanding a service for mental health and wellness proactively for ability to train and educate people with coping skills on the front end, hopefully to avoid or be able to manage better emotional crisis pieces, and then on the back end to provide care and follow-up for like a continuum of care. So those are works that are ongoing with multiple departments. The fire department has had great opportunities working with BC's Health District. Again, PD, city attorney, quality of life. It's been great. So we're very optimistic that we can look into the future for that area of service.
Yeah.
But again, that is high level of discussion, high interest. Hermosa is actually in process of putting something like that. They were actually able to capture a significant grant to implement that type of a program. So certainly in Redondo, as well as the beach cities in totality, there is that interest to move into that clear community need. So more to come on that.
Excuse me, with that.
Yes, sir.
Have you considered sending any of your personnel to the MHITs? Say, for example, the LA Police Department puts on for free, LA County Sheriff puts on, it's called mental health intervention techniques, the old crisis intervention techniques. The Sheriff's Department has also a free 40-hour course for that as well. And/or psychological first aid, which is a 6-hour FEMA course that can be done online.
Right. So as far as the psychological first aid piece, we've worked with Beach City's Health District because they have mental health practitioners that can provide that. So we've definitely looked into that. But I would love to be able to get with you for the other elements you talked about. That'd be great.
I may just jump into one thing because I know it's usually at the end, is it possible for the next meeting that you provide us with what your internal employee wellness program is about?
Sure.
Okay. Again, the difference I see with the psychological first aid is one, what Beach Cities offers, but it is not tailored towards first responders. And the very big difference is like, in my opinion, it's like taking your Lamborghini to the Ford dealer. It doesn't work. Okay. The psychological people within those programs do not understand, and this is again my opinion.
Sure.
What a firefighter, what a police officer, what a first responder goes through in order to deal with those situations. And therefore, their programs are fairly geared towards a kid who breaks up, things like that. And the suicidal issues, and ideations and such like that are a lot more within those that are within first responders.
Sure. So what I was referring to with Beach Cities is our ability to be trained to be able to provide service to those in need in the community. So it's
Right, the MHITS does that.
And what I'm talking about, what you're asking me about is like our internal peer counseling program.
Twofold. One, the MHITS is what, for example, the LA Police Department offers for free. LA County Sheriff offers very similar. And basically what it does do is to teach you how to deal with the mentally ill and understand the differences very generally and fairly generically of recognition of what to do and what the resources that are out there, say, for example, for a 5150. Okay. Again, without necessarily the need of a clinician to be there, because obviously an officer will be there who can also do that. Okay. But again, the differentiation between what is a psychological episode and what is a medical episode. Okay. And that's one of the biggest issues that also strikes with law enforcement as well, is what do you do with either of them? I mean, are you trying to, again, just dealing with them both? But I was just curious about both, and also your mental health officer, rather your employee wellness program.
Okay. Sure.
Thank you.
Yep. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say thank you so much to you and to all the fire and police personnel for all you do and all your service. My heroes.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate you.
We like county fire, but go Redondo fire, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Great, that closes J3. Let's start on J4 with Joy for the discussion of recent events at City Prosecutor's Office.
Good evening, Joy Ford, Quality of Life Prosecutor. October starts the new bail schedule where the Commission for the Judges have changed a lot of the bail amounts to either cite and release, book and release, or to magistrate review, almost all the misdemeanors and some felonies. And so our prosecutors have noticed less cases in custody to be filed, so people are not going to court straight in custody as they were before. Tomorrow for City Council meeting, the City Attorney's Office has 3 homeless-related items on the agenda, 2 of which are state grants that we have received. One from Assemblymember El Mersucci for $500,000 for our homeless court. Another state grant, $557,962 from the Permanent Local Housing Allocation to fund our pallet shelters. And last month, I mentioned that we received a grant for adding 13 additional bridge housing units. Well, now this month, we have those 13 leases to use those funds. So those are all on the agenda tomorrow for approval from the City Council. And homeless court is this Wednesday.
Great. Are there any questions? Go ahead.
I just wanted some clarification. Maybe I misunderstood here. So the bail schedule is being changed. It's being eliminated or reduced in certain areas. And so now the city prosecutor will have less work? Did I understand that? or
No, not,
Okay,
sorry,
okay.
not less work. It's changed. It changes every year. This year was a drastic change to eliminate amounts for bail. And instead of having an amount like 10,000 to keep someone in custody, 50,000 to keep someone in custody, they've changed it to either cite and release the suspect, book and release the suspect, or bring the suspect to magistrate review to determine an amount to keep that person in custody. So now the amount of cases that are brought to the prosecutors in custody are less, but they will still come to the prosecutors later because they are now out of custody.
So there'll be fewer people in custody, is that true?
Correct.
Okay, so that means you need less jail keepers. So maybe they could take the budget from the jail keepers and give it to the fire department, who apparently is in need of funds.
I cannot make that determination. Again, there's still book and release, which would require jailers to book the suspects and then release them, but that's not a question for me.
Okay. And how is that going to impact the city, like crime, or are we bracing for a change, or how should we adjust for that? Or how will it impact the quality of life in the city?
Many of us are in the opinion, although we don't have the hard statistics, that it will increase crime in the city if someone comes in on a catalytic converter theft, gets released, does it again, or does it in another city.
I was at a county meeting where Chief Luna said to the county board members that they didn't have any data on whether this would work well or not, that no data had been created before making the decision, so it's not a data-driven decision. And the jailers were here a couple weeks ago asking for a pay increase, and the word has that they are not receiving very appropriate increases year over year, and they asked for increases, and I could tell that they worked their tails off in the jails. So we probably need them still to process people, even though they've just been arrested and they're going to be released soon. But I'm delighted to hear any other opinions or questions. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, on the Harlow's court, approximately how many defendants are per session?
Between 20 to 30,
20 to 30.
sometimes more than 30.
Okay, and generally speaking, what is the type of cases that you're hearing at those particular sessions?
Well, all misdemeanors, but generally they're drug-related, alcohol-related, trespassing, some municipal code violations.
Okay, and of those, okay, generally speaking, what are the dispositions of those?
In homeless court,
Yes.
so the goal of homeless court is to get each participant permanently housed. And once they're permanently housed, their case is dismissed and they graduate.
Okay, but I don't understand how a goal of a court is to put somebody in a house. When the goal, when the goal of an arrest or a citation is for the enforcement of laws. I'm saying is that though, if for example, a person goes and trespasses 45 times on my property, you're going to just put him in a house somewhere, as opposed to at one point or another that he should be held accountable for that.
Yes.
Okay.
So many programs in the judicial system right now are moving towards rehabilitative justice. So there are a lot of diversion programs, and our homeless court is a diversion program where we are diverting them from jail and getting them treatment and services to be able to stabilize enough to get housing so that they're not repeating the same kind of violations that you're speaking of and repeatedly trespassing. Whereas without this diversion program and we go to the traditional model of enforcement, they would go to jail, spend a day, because of overcrowding, get kicked out, and then they do it again. So we're trying to prevent that repeat offense.
Right, but my concern would be that the court is now taking on a different type of what do you say, mission, if you will, is to house people. The thing again is that how many times has a person, let me ask you this, I'm like, maybe rephrase this. How many repeat offenders do you have that come back that you're still trying to house? Generally speaking, I would say an average. So for example, if somebody shows up this month for a trespass, you give them the diversion, you've offered him everything that you've probably offered him before, because that's generally what the quality of health officers are doing. But then he does it again. How about the recidivism of that?
I don't have that data in front of me right now, but I
Is it
can,
possible to receive that?
I will try, but can you tailor what exactly you're asking
Okay,
for?
if, for example, a person comes to the court for, generally, obviously, these are low-level misdemeanors. Generally, misdemeanors are municipal violations, infractions of sorts. Okay, they go to the court. However, they're going to do offer services and such like that. How many times has any one or two or three people, generally referred to as frequent flyers, who come back on a separate charge on a different time, say in the past 3 years?
Past 3 years. So are you asking for current participants or people who have graduated? Or both?
Both.
Okay, I will get that for you.
Again, because my concern is that because the consequences for such, because I heard it, or rather I read it in the paper where the opinion was that if you go to this court, nobody goes to jail.
Correct? We do, well,
But at what point does somebody go to jail?
okay. So let me explain that with a little bit more context. When they come to homeless court, we guarantee we don't put anyone in jail at homeless court. But if they are not participating and following the orders of the court, they will be exited from homeless court. They go back to their traditional criminal court in the Torrance courthouse, and their case will be dealt with in the traditional criminal way.
Okay, which I think is probably a better approach to this, because obviously there are consequences, and quite obviously we do want to rehabilitate people as much as possible. But my concern would be that if it's put out there that, especially to the community, that if this person does whatever they're going to do in your house or whatever else, that they're not going to go to jail. And the same thing goes is that when the suspects or the perpetrators are also the opinion that they're not going to go to jail either, and that's why they end up selecting this type of direction.
So
So it is very clear that there are consequences for not participating.
Very, very clear in the court or very clear to the public?
We try to make it clear to both.
Okay.
I
Thank
mean, this is just this movement, right, and justice that we
Sorry?
can, this is, as she said, moving to rehabilitative justice. But if you wanted to actually do a trial, like you would have to see how a similar population of people do in the regular system versus this system, and whether if there's more recidivism or not in the system.
Not
Because you can
necessarily.
have theories and ideas about justice, but
No,
if
I'm-
you don't
what
actually
I'm-
have like that, I mean,
But what I'm
even if
looking
she
at is
gives
that
you
if
that.
some person goes to court this month and they do whatever they can and everything else, I want to see if they come back 6 months later, 1 year later, 2 years later.
But you would have to compare that to a similar cohort of people
Well, I don't have to
that go
compare
into
that.
the traditional and see if the numbers are decreased on
No.
doing this, like to
I'm
committing a
asking-
crime again,
I'm asking
then
for the
that's a
raw numbers.
successful intervention.
No. I'm not looking at the solution for this and trying to compare one to the other. I'm not trying to compare the two, because I'm well aware of generally what the recidivism rate is for the general population.
Which is not a great, which is a high rate.
Okay, what I'm questioning here in being able to understand whether the success of that is that if it has a very low recidivism rate, then I would venture to say that the program is a success.
Yes, but you don't know if it's low or high unless you compare it to a similar cohort of
I'm just saying,
people.
for example, if they handle, okay, you said 25 cases a month, or, so if they handle 25 cases, okay?
I understand what you're saying, dude.
Hold on, sir, for 4 months, it's 100 people,
Yes.
okay? And 75 of those people within the 2-year period have reoffended.
Yes, but
And
in
I would
the,
venture to say, hold on, sir. I would venture to say that it may not be as successful as we like to believe. If only 5 people within that same time frame or have come back, then I would venture to say it's a success and then we should continue it. Because here's the thing, if we're spending, and I understand possibly anywhere from maybe, for the numbers that I have received, about $10,000 per person, we might as well just spend that money to drive them over to the Torrance Court.
but if you take those 100 people, right? And in the traditional system, 95 people come back 6 months later,
Right?
right? Versus this program to 75.
But see, the other
That's
factors,
still
the
like
other
a
factors you don't
success.
have in there, or may not have in there, okay, are the whether or not they are unhoused.
No, you'd have to have the same population.
You can't have the same population, sir, because what you're comparing them to are people that do have houses, all kinds of other factors. I'm just kind of seeing whether or not, if this is successful, because so far, as a community member, the only information we have, whether it be pallet housing, court, is all anecdotal because there's no real studies to look at that, to break it down. And until we do that.
I'm not like, I think we should have studies, like evaluation. all of that
That's
is
exactly
done.
what I'm asking
But
for.
I'm just saying, in that study, you would have to look at other unhoused people going through the traditional system and compare it. Otherwise, you're not comparing it to anything.
Okay.
Like, I don't understand why you're not getting, right? Like, if there's 100 people who are unhoused also, who have the same demographics versus 100 people who are unhoused who have the same demographics, and they have to go through the traditional system versus this system. That's the only way you can get an accurate measurement how successful something is.
I don't believe so.
I mean, I think if, like, you're right, if the rate is low, that suggests that it is successful.
But without the comparison, then you couldn't compare it. That's what you're saying.
I don't think you can officially compare it.
Just want to comment, I don't know that it has to be relative, it could just be absolute.
No.
It doesn't have to be relative.
But we are like doing something, this is an innovation and trying to do something different, right? You can't know if it's better than the other thing unless you compare it.
I'm not saying it's better, I just want to see what the numbers bear out.
I think it's worth seeing what the numbers bear out, not arguing that, that's good.
That's all.
We can
But
agendize that in the,
what we do with those
referral
numbers,
step.
I think, is where our disagreement
That's
is.
fine, but I think it's better to get the numbers because
I agree with
to
that.
date, very few people within this community are actually asking for hard numbers and asking for proof
That's fair.
and data to be able to determine whether or not something's
fair.
successful or not.
Yes.
Just like the no bail decision, they didn't
Right.
get data. You're right.
Right, and the thing again is that whether, again, like, for example, I will give you an example. When he talks about crime, there's a difference between crime and reported crime.
Yeah, that's true.
Big difference.
Sure.
Crime, reported crime, filing. Okay, how many cases do they file? How many cases are presented? So we want to look at the filing.
Okay.
So with those numbers you look at, but it is, part of what has occurred is that in this community, and in most communities actually, of those who don't understand police work, law enforcement, or the criminal justice system, don't know how to look at the numbers. And you have to have numbers in order to be able to.
I'm not denying that.
Officer Lostrom, any feedback on this part of the conversation?
So I will say that I will get whatever hard numbers I am able to give you. I do not have the capacity to do a comparative study. I mean,
we're not
hopefully in
asking for
the
that, ma'am.
future,
No.
we could do that. I would love that. And in terms of success, we have decreased homelessness by 44% from 2020 to 2022. We're going to give the city council a report on the status of last year's count to this year's count soon. And we've been recognized by the state through a Helen Putnam Award for our programs.
Yeah.
We have been asked to present in various presentations and are considered very successful. So, and if I could just invite you to come to our homeless court this Wednesday or any month that you're available to see what we are doing there. I think you'll
I've
find
been to
it
the homeless court.
very successful.
I've been to the homeless court.
Okay.
Okay, but the question is, you say we've reduced homeless 40%. Is that the total number in the city? Or so 40% less this year than, say, last year?
44% in Redondo Beach from 2020 to 2022.
Okay, so, all right.
And I just
I'll
wanted
take that, but I'm
to,
sure there's a lot of other factors in that.
well, yes, we have our pallet shelters and bridge housing
Right.
and everything we're doing. I also wanted to correct just your, so it's 20 to 30 cases a month, but it's not different people every month, right?
okay.
So
It
4
could
months
be-
would not be 100 people.
Right, I'm just saying they would come back for a follow-up or for a disposition of sorts
Yes.
and such. So that, generally speaking, you have 25 people on the docket.
around there.
Okay.
Commissioner Skiba?
Hi, I just had one quick question. Does the funding for the homeless court and these cases come from grants?
Yes.
Thank you.
Therefore, no public money is spent, taxes and other things like that from Redondo Beach residents for the program. Is that right?
For homeless court?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Just looking for a zero or go or no go on that one. Any other questions?
Wait a minute, I just want to make clarification. The court is still the county of Los Angeles, right?
Yes.
Okay, so therefore, the Superior Court is the one who runs it still, so therefore, not necessarily directly from taxes, but the grant, do the grants pay to Superior Court
No.
for the court itself? No.
No.
So it still comes from the county, it's just the location where the judge shows up.
Location, got it,
Same
thank
with the
you.
public defender,
Correct.
which
Got
is
it.
not part of that. Okay, I would venture to say that that grant basically pays the city for the prosecutor's position only, right?
No.
For the
What do they
housing,
pay for?
Pays for storage, our security, the bailiffs, and ADA-approved portable toilets, and various expenses like the tents, the chairs, the furniture that is used.
Okay, but not the judge or the public defender?
No.
Okay,
But they are the same judge and public defenders that would run court at Torrance. They're just now doing the same thing they would be doing in a different location.
right.
Excellent discussion. Are there any other questions on this or other matters related to the prosecutor's office? Great. Thank you, Joy. Let's go to J5. Discussion of crime recap and community policing and volunteers with Officer Lostrom. Go ahead.
Okay. In addition to the information you have in your agenda about the Part 1 crime for the period of time that we haven't seen each other, two big things that I would like to cover would be Beach Life Ranch occurred, if you did not hear. And it went over very well and safe. They used a new security company on this occasion that worked very well with the police department. And we did not have any sort of major safety issues occur. There are some small things like people being escorted out that have drank too much alcohol or something of that nature. And then the other thing was given the circumstances in the Middle East, this past weekend, there was a lot of intelligence and information circulating about some online statements that were made and information that was dispersed. So obviously we were on kind of a heightened alert, monitoring all intelligence portals. We do have a sergeant staffed at the Joint Regional Intelligence Center. And the patrols at all the, related houses of worship and such were drastically increased. And I'm thankful to report that there was no sort of major incidents or notable incidents of any kind over this past weekend relating to those things. For the community policing report, let me get onto that page. In the past month, we did another run, hide, fight training at Northrop Grumman.
Good.
One safety presentation was made for the women's group at the St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church. Obviously, Beach Life Ranch. We did our National Coffee with a Cop on October 4th at Tommy and Atticus. It was very well attended. That is a new bakery up on Aviation where the old Giuliano's was.
Right.
It says Redondo Beach PD skate event, but we had to reschedule that, so there will be an upcoming instead. And then on the 14th this weekend, we had a run, hide, fight training at the South Bay Islamic Center located in Lamita, where and the nexus to Redondo Beach being obviously South Bay Islamic Center is patronized by many people from the surrounding cities. One of their staff members is employed as one of our chaplains, it's not an employment, but acts as one of our chaplains. And he's also a graduate of our Redondo Beach Citizens Academy, which begins February 2024 for any of you interested in learning all about the police department. Upcoming events, we had a neighborhood watch revival in the 700 block of Irina, neighborhood watch initiations on the 19th and the 26th, one in the north end of the city and one in the south end. We will be at the Toledo PTA movie night, handing out popcorn. We'll be doing another Coffee with a Cop at a local church on November 7th. And then our big community event, Let It Snow Redondo, Saturday, December 2nd from noon to 4. Usually pretty well attended. The volunteers report for September 23 is 339 hours to date. 2,683 hours. The notes made by Reserve Officer Stark is our newly appointed VIPs. We have 3 new ones, one of which is a Citizens Academy graduate, 2 of which got hired and elected to attend the Citizens Academy also. They're in training, and there's 4 candidates who have interviewed now for a potential position going forward. They've interviewed. I think they held an interview just after our last meeting. Any additional questions of any kind? Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to know some more information about the possible expansion of the Run, Hide, Fight courses.
So typically, our school resource officers regularly teach Run, Hide, Fight to school staff, students, and that's ongoing, multiple times a year, every year. And then I teach the Run, Hide, Fight as the community-based officer for our local churches, businesses, really anyone who would inquire. Since there's been increased request, there's been discussions about hosting an open to the public or open to the community Run, Hide, Fight training using a larger venue. It's only a couple hours it takes to do. So we're thinking about using the high school auditorium or the Redondo Beach Performing Arts Center and, opening it up to however many seats we're allowed to have there and see how well attended that is. Who knows? I don't know how many people will want to come listen to me talk for a couple hours, but it is very good information. So yes, we are looking into new ideas. Always. Yes.
Do you know what grade that starts in?
Do I know what?
The grade that you start teaching it in?
So they do it at every level. In elementary school, they refer to it as Run, Hide, Distract. And then middle school and ongoing, they refer to it as the Run, Hide, Fight training.
I'm wondering, because I have 2 kids in elementary school over here, and they do an Alta Vista, I imagine, right? All the schools?
Yes, yeah. And it's varied. Obviously, if there's younger kids involved or anything like that, it's treated a little more sensitively.
Of course. Okay, good. So it's like, did they mention the word shooter, or what do they say?
I don't know. I'd have to ask our school resource officers kind of how it goes. I know that they name it that instead, and I'm sure there's a slight adjustment to the approach, but specifically I'd have to ask.
Yeah, I know people have different thoughts about whether you should say it explicitly, whether you should not to kids. I'm not sure what the right answer is. But.
I've had small kids present, like unexpectedly when I've done it, and surprisingly, being candid with them, not on extreme levels like I would.
Yes. Yeah.
In certain cases, but they kind of understand. I have 2 little ones. It always surprises me how much they understand and how well they take things and how resilient they are. But specifically, no, I'd have to ask our school resource officers.
Could we talk to them, or could we get some more information on how it works?
I can give you their information. You can call them directly, and
that'd be
he
awesome.
can kind of give you a.
I'd like to know just what my kids are going through.
Any other questions?
How many neighborhood watch organizations do you have, or the neighborhood watch groups?
Right now, or at least our last count, 147 captains covering 188 blocks.
How many of them are active?
So that is harder to determine. Generally speaking, they stay on our email list, and unless they respond and say, hey, I no longer live here, or so on and so forth, we've typically presumed that they get the information and they pass it along. Couple times a year, someone will come in and say, I'd like to start Neighborhood Watch. We're on this block. And I say, hey, you have an existing block captain. Here's this person. And that person's like, I'm kind of done. I'm ready to move on. You want to take over and do another reinitiating. So it's kind of an ever cycling circle of people. But once or twice a year, maybe we'll get we'll get an email that says, hey, I've moved out of the area. And I'll just ask them to forward a request for a replacement to their group. And it depends. It depends if it's a really, nice, street of all single family, kind of more long-term feeling area, that's less likely to happen. When you get up to like a street that has more multi-units, things like that, where people are more transient in and out living wise, there's more frequent turnover or changes of the guard or a loss of a group.
Is it possible for the person who runs the program to send an email blast out and determine who is still active and who is not active? And possibly a little more robust outreach during some of these other community meetings
Yeah, so typically
in
we're
order to get the number down or determine, do we have 147 or do we have only 20?
we're pretty active, generally speaking. The Neighborhood Watch program, it's myself and our program coordinator, Kareen. We're pretty active. We send the information out regularly. We typically get a good amount of response back with inquisitions, different things like that. We host a block captain meeting once to twice a year. And we usually get attendance upwards of 40 or 50 of our block captains. But I suppose there would be, it would be possible to inquire and hope that anyone active or anyone who gets the information and shares it would happen to respond in an email and base a count off that. And then that would be the best information probably, aside from going and knocking on everybody's door and disturbing their peace.
Okay.
The jokes are pretty good, by the way, in the emails.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There is a...
Burrito.
And we had our newsletter email list is expanded beyond our block captains, and we'll typically add anyone that wishes to be a part of that newsletter. So please send me an email if you wish to be. You probably all get my newsletter with my joke of the week. But that's typically where we get a lot of information out, along with South Bay Alert and so on.
Good report. Any other questions from commissioners?
I do have a request. I don't know if we're going to leave it for the member items referral. Also, along the same lines, the question is possibly an overview of your employee wellness program.
Sure. That would probably be referrals, our referrals
Okay,
to staff.
I'll wait for
Yeah.
referrals and I'll go ahead and bring it up.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Officer Lobstrom. So we would go to member items and referrals to staff. And we can start down on this end here.
I'd like to have hopefully an overview of the employee wellness programs that are implemented.
Do I hear a motion for that?
I second.
So moved.
That was Chair Gall with the motion and Kleinbaum with the second.
Can I hear all in favor?
And, yeah, go ahead.
Yep, thank you, sir. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Unanimous.
Unanimous, great.
Thank you.
Any other ones? Any other referrals?
No, sir, I have none. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a request here. I noticed an increasing problem in two areas. One is e-bikes, okay? I don't know, most people that live in the city, they just drive in their cars and they get in their house and they go in their garage and they don't know what's happening in the streets. I spend hours on the day, during the day, walking out in the street, and I go by bicycle almost every day throughout the city, and I'm terrified with these e-bikes, okay? And basically, I don't know what you want to call them, they're motorcycles is what they are with children on them. Okay, and they don't follow, have no respect for the rules of the road, and it's not their fault, it's the parents. The parents are responsible for that. And so I'd like to establish some kind of a subcommittee here for this organization so we can investigate how can we better educate the parents so because they're responsible for their children, because this is a danger to the community and it's getting worse every day.
Can I redirect it with a question and want to get feedback? 'Cause this
Just
one-
informationally, we do have e-bike on our referral docket for an e-bike update
Okay,
as far as all the action, a presentation on all the action that's been taken and so on.
could we add a little detail on that as to whether we should follow Manhattan Beach and ticket $500 per e-bike violation? Does anybody want to hear a motion for that? And then
That's fine.
you can add
That
that.
can just be in the comprehensive e-bike update.
Can we see like the rate of accidents, like of these e-bike
think so.
accidents and
There's no doubt on
citations and stuff?
That was Manhattan Beach popped up with.
Sorry?
And Manhattan Beach popped up with that there was very little data concerning accidents of that sort.
Oh, yeah, they didn't have enough.
Not enough. no.
The national news does, yes, but it hasn't really trickled into our data gathering activities. Yeah.
Probably. What I would venture to say is that not just Manhattan Beach. I know Huntington Beach has also enacted one, and there's like
yeah.
5 other, and some are more extreme, I get it.
Yeah,
Some are
yeah.
not. But I think if we can balance ourselves somewhere in between the two, that we are able to cover ourselves in a sense that we don't have to come back and amend later on as things progress, such.
I'm not that much into punishing people. I want to educate people, okay? Parents want their children to be safe, and they're not. And they don't know what's going on because the parents are at work and the children are on, they should call it what it is. It's not an e-bike, it's a motorcycle. Most of them don't even have pedals on them, okay? They have accelerators, throttle, just like a motorcycle. It's the same thing. And, but somebody an adult, has a license and knows the rules of the road and is required to follow them. And so these are children that don't know better, and the parents are at work. And so we need some campaign to educate the parents that this is a danger to their family. I don't know how else to put it. Fining them, I don't think is the right solution.
I know Commissioner Hannon had his training programs as well, and there's a lot of different ways to proceed with this. Did you have a
The
comment?
electric dirt bikes are not street legal, and we take enforcement,
I see them too.
fully take
I think to
enforcement on
help with
those.
the public health campaign, again, like getting like the rates of accidents in this community or like anecdotes of like accidents that have happened, like to convince people that this is an issue that they need to, deal with.
So what can the commission do? I don't know, or maybe.
Do you guys keep track of that stuff?
Traffic accident data?
Like involving e-bikes?
Yeah, that's, that can be covered kind of under the comprehensive e-bike presentation that's on the docket.
It would be a good discussion, and then maybe after the discussion, I know I was at the city council meeting a week or so ago, talking about just my opinion to get tickets for violators of e-bikes, just to kind of educate the parents. I mean, that's one way to do it, but everybody's got an opinion, but maybe we can collect opinions, and then one of us can go to a council meeting or just write to the council and suggest some ways to create awareness. And after all, we're just an advisory body, volunteer. So it's great that that's on the agenda. Is there anything else?
Yeah, there's another one, and that's related to, over the years, there's more traffic on the roads, and the city has decided to almost like eventually every single block at every single intersection will have a stop sign. And so no matter where you go, stop sign, stop sign, stop sign. And that doesn't deter anything. What that does is, the reality is, the more stop signs you put in, the more people blow the stop signs. They don't stop at all. Okay, and so I walk my dog every day, and I'm a bicyclist, okay, and I can see all these cars, and it's really dangerous, okay? And yesterday, I almost got killed last night because it was a traffic light, and the car didn't even stop. It just went right through the red light, and I'm standing in the middle of the street. I have a green pedestrian sign to go across, and the car
had
just
that
blows right
today.
past me.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And I keep complaining about it, and already at
What
that
cross street is
intersection,
that?
people have gotten
Is that
killed.
Prospect?
That's on Torrance Boulevard before you reach PCH, going down the hill there. For some
Yeah.
reason, the cars don't see that the traffic lights there, where Camino Real meets
Oh,
Torrance
yeah.
Boulevard.
Over by
right
Optum.
there. Yeah, right there. That exactly right there. That intersection. That's horrific. It's terrifying. Okay,
is. I
and
don't
it's not
cross
even
over
funny
there.
because there's
Yeah.
like over the years, cars have gone into the same building like 3 times already. There's a picture frame shop there. I know the owner, and his building has been hit by vehicles 3 times already. Okay, and I've watched people have gotten killed, or multiple people have gotten killed. I mean, what are you waiting for? And so we need to either do something to slow the traffic down, or have people obey the traffic signs. Otherwise, you're just going to have more property damage, more injuries, and dead bodies.
Just
And
a
so,
quick
you know,
question. What percentage of your DUIs are coming right off the pier or heading down to the pier throughout the year? Do you get about 10% of the whole city's DUIs right there in that one segment going up and down there?
That I don't know.
But you'd say it's a significant number? Torrance Boulevard?
Where the arrest is made.
Yeah, or where you.
It's just kind of hard because
Yeah, that's
any
true. It's
DUI,
technical.
any DUI pullover could have been followed for
Oh, that's true.
3
too.
miles.
That's true too.
You know, the pullover could be at 190th and Burl, but it came from the pier,
Understood.
or we don't know where it came from. General area, they could have been coming from the village, so that would be
Understood.
somewhat hard to determine.
Commissioner Kleinbaum, then Commissioner Skiba.
Yeah, just one last thing.
Sure.
I don't know what the point is of having all these stop signs. If people don't obey them, then you should take them out. But if you put the stop sign in, you have an obligation to enforce it. If you're not going to enforce it, take the stop sign out.
Thank you. Commissioner Skiba.
Thank you. Well, I think they should take out some of the stop signs and put in those speed humps. So if they want to speed through there, they should get themselves, all shaken up and what all. But as far as the e-bikes go, do they currently have, or are they planning to have registration and requisite training? And so that the parents, in the case of all these violations, would be able to be notified and possibly fined? And in the case of these recidivists, would they be able to impound the bikes?
I don't know about impounding the bikes. Anyone who's riding the illegal electric dirt bikes, they would get a misdemeanor citation and their bike would be impounded because they're not street legal. Riding, any lawful riding of a bicycle or the lawful bicycles up to class 3 e-bikes can receive a ticket, and that typically goes to diversion in Van Nuys Court for juveniles. And then the adults would go to South Bay Traffic Court and receive a fine of some kind. And then generally speaking, our efforts are in full force as what we're capable of as a department of, 98 total sworn officers, top to bottom, but our school resource officers, community services unit, quality of life unit, and, the patrol guys that at times focus on that. I think our last number was there's 1,600 stop signs in the city and 100 police officers total. That's the entire department. So if you're talking about deployable force, patrol, and the specialized units that focus on that area, you're talking more about 45 officers probably. I'm our community-based officer, so per Robert Peel's principles on policing, it is my job to figure out a way to get the community involved in crime prevention,
Yes.
in stopping at all the stop signs, et cetera. Realistically, nobody stops. If you actually sat and watched, nobody stops like you're supposed to, like they describe it.
California rule. Yeah.
But generally speaking, the efforts are there with the personnel we have for the e-bike issues. There's an assembly bill. I believe it's 580,
Yeah, I think
but
it
don't
is.
quote
Yes.
me. I think it's 580, and that would be statewide legislation about e-bikes. And there's a number of stipulations in there that are the hot topics as far as e-bike riding goes. Some sort of age requirements, I think,
Requirement,
some
helmet
sort of
as well.
helmet laws and a number of stipulations in there that I think focus on the hot topics of e-bike riding.
The bicycle is that vehicle is broken down in several ways, of a motor-driven cycle, or a bicycle, or a motor vehicle.
Different class levels, yeah.
Right. And with that as well, there is one way of affecting the e-bike issue, but is rarely enforced by probably any agency, probably in the past 20 years, which requires a bicycle to have a registration.
Exactly.
Years ago, remember, you'd have to go to the police
Yeah,
station
that's right.
and get a tag.
Yeah.
That was one of the greatest probable cause, people pulling over for somebody who was riding a bicycle on the street, and they say, you don't have a bicycle license, and that's how you were able to identify. It can go back, but most of the agencies do not do that, and that is one way of causing them to register the bicycle.
Yes,
Mr. Kleinbaum.
very good.
I just came up with an idea. I just thought about it. Why don't you require the children on e-bikes to be supervised by an adult while they're doing this?
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean,
It's a bicycle.
I can't do that. But as a society as a whole, yes, I'm sure at some point that could be an idea for them.
A lot of kids would be happy
Thank
with
you.
that.
Commissioner Skiba, you're all, is that your referral? All good?
Yes,
Wonderful.
thank you.
Great. I have a referral, and might need a vote, might not, but we have a juvenile referral opportunity to the alcove of the Beach Cities Health District. The Manhattan Beach Police Department and the Hermosa Beach Police Department refer any potential juveniles who are experiencing maybe depression or small antics, perhaps could utilize the alcove, which is, I took a tour of it a couple weeks ago, and gives teenagers an outlet to, just do their homework, hang out with their friends, or just have a quiet place after school. I'm not sure what the current juvenile diversion program or what the relationship is with Redondo Beach and any other public or nonprofit entity, but I would like to make a motion for either a representative of the police department, whether it's Chief Hoffman or another member, to go over with us how we refer juveniles for diversion, if not the beach cities. What is our alternative to that?
Just keep in mind, I have three things. We still have to do our noise enforcement presentation next month.
Sure.
And then the month after, we do the e-bike and now the officer wellness. So
Okay.
we'll be working through those one at a time. But do you mean like mental health services?
Yes,
Okay.
preventive.
Not necessarily crime diversion or,
Could be crime
Traffic
diversion,
so
smoke, yeah.
if I can answer a
Light-
question, maybe
light
it would help.
crimes, yes.
We have a great relationship with Alco. They invited us to tour and developed a relationship with our school resource officers, who obviously serve the population that they're aiming to assist as well. We conducted some stop a bleed and run, hide, fight training with them and their staff. And it's currently an active resource for us. I don't know if they have like a specific referral program, like they don't come out and take kids there or anything like that. We just use it as a resource. And that wouldn't just be our school resource officers, but obviously in our quality of life unit, our homeless liaison mental health officer who works with our full-time LA County Mental Health Commission. They have an active relationship with Alcove. And once they got up and running, obviously, they communicated and were made aware, and we were given information to give out, more on a referral kind of a basis, as opposed to like a forced diversion.
Do we have an alternate vendor or supplier that we are forced to utilize per another existing charter that Manhattan Beach and Hermosa Beach are not beholden to?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Are we forced to refer it to a different public or nonprofit entity when there's a juvenile diversion referral needed? And then, yeah,
No.
okay.
So typically, there's a number of entities around. Well, now Exodus exists, and all their network of mental health services. They have options for juveniles. If we were to do something like place a juvenile on a 5150 hold, where
What is
they don't have a
Exodus?
choice.
You said
Exodus is the urgent mental health urgent care that we utilize for 5150 detentions.
Are they a private sector or public sector? What's the, what type of entity? Is it county?
They're private, but they are
Private.
partnered with the county hospitals, I think, and so on. I wouldn't know for sure.
So that'd be for a mental health response, but
That
not
would be
for-
a
okay.
5150 hold, so they don't have a
Yeah,
choice. We take them to
Right,
those resources. And there's built-in services for juveniles too. So if we call and we state that someone's a juvenile, they may refer us to a specific facility. If we're engaging someone on
Are you
a,
referring to juveniles that are being detained by officers, or is it just a referral? for somebody who has an issue?
Referral, yeah, with an issue, maybe
a lot of the calls we get are like our SROs are
delinquent,
Pre-delinquent.
yeah, pre-delinquent, yes.
troubled
yes.
kids are misbehaving,
Yes.
not coming home, things like that. We're like, hey, or kids that are bullied,
Yes, that,
experiencing
yes.
suicidal thoughts
Yes,
or
that right
general
there.
depression, things like that.
Yes.
We, and the parents are like, I can't get the kid to go to school, something
Right.
like that. We come, we're like, hey, we have the information. Here's this place called Alcove. Here, parent, here's this pamphlet. Reach out to them. Let's
Interesting.
see if you should go here. There's like-minded kids. There's kids in the same boat, and it's really good for them and healthy. Alcove is just a consensual resource
Yeah,
for Beach City kids and older teenagers that our school resource officers and our quality of life unit are actively aware of and have a good relationship with for that purpose,
great.
for that consensual referral process. But they have to be willing also.
I would say that if Beach City's Health District would like to have 3 minutes in the next meeting to come by to say what is missing in the relationship in terms of referral, I'd be delighted to have a representative here, November, December, et cetera, and then we can make a referral to staff to focus specifically on that issue. Commissioner Gupta?
Nothing at this time.
Nothing.
Commissioner Gittens? Okay, great. Nothing else. I call this meeting to be adjourned at 8:47, and everybody have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you.